This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have as our guest the leading candidate for the Supreme Court in Alabama next year, Greg Cook, who's a prominent lawyer in Birmingham and has been active in the Republican Party politics for years in Jefferson County. Folks, Mike Boland is in this seat now. We have, we'll ask the judge about Greg Cook about this. I think we have 9 members of the Supreme Court, and 2 are up for election this year. This is one of the 2 seats, and it's a seat of retiring Justice Mike Boland, who is a friend of Greg Cook and I both. Greg and Mike were together in the Republican Party politics in Jefferson County. He was probate judge. Anyway, Greg, good to have you on the show.
It is an honor to be here, Steve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Greg Cook is a clean-cut, distinguished-looking gentleman. Folks, I'm going to tell you, he went to Duke undergraduate school and Harvard Law School. So if you're looking for someone with the right kind of intellectual pedigree to be on the Supreme Court, it's pretty good. But he's a regular kind of guy. If y'all sit and visit with him for a while, you'll realize he's not some egghead from Duke or Harvard. He's a good old Alabama boy. But you grew up, and you got family roots in Florence and Atmore, but you went off to the Air Force. Tell us about your Air Force career. But now did you go in the Air Force before you went to Duke?
No, let me talk about that a little bit.
Like
you said, Steve, I'm originally from Florence, Alabama, and got my first job working at the Wendy's Hamburgers on Florence Boulevard, and did not like emptying the grease buckets. Grease buckets smell bad, they're nasty, and I knew that I needed to go off to get an education. And so my parents didn't have the kind of money to send me to a fancy college, and so the United States Air Force was how I paid my way through college, and was very fortunate to have the Air Force pay all of my tuition for 4 years. And my dad was Air Force before me. He was a navigator on B-52s, and my younger brother went to the academy and flew for the Air Force for 20 years. So we are an Air Force family.
Y'all really are an Air Force family. You have one younger brother?
I do. 2 younger brothers, actually, yeah.
Now, and are they making a career, both of them making a career of the Air Force, or did they?
My second brother did make a career of the Air Force. He's a Delta pilot now and flew 20 years with the Air Force first, and my other brother is a CPA in Birmingham.
In Birmingham. Does your second brother, does he live in Atlanta, working with Delta?
He does, yeah. Yep.
Greg, let me ask you this question. Going back to that, did you like, you had to go in the Air Force before they went to college, but to get the Air Force paid for it, didn't you?
No.
How'd that work?
I was ROTC, and you had to apply for a scholarship. It's sort of like going to the academy. You had to apply. And
so it's the same as the academy, but you just went to Duke. Huh?
I did. Yep.
And then you met. But now let me tell you this: you went. You didn't go to Virginia. You went to Harvard Law School. But you were talking about before this. You're real active in the Baptist Church there in Birmingham, one of the biggest and most prominent. My favorite churches in the state, Dawson Memorial Baptist in Birmingham there in Homewood. But you met your wife in Virginia. Now, what were y'all doing in Virginia?
So I spent 4 years at the Pentagon. That was where the Air Force sent me. I didn't ask to go there.
Now, did
but
you
I
go
was
to law
very
school
proud.
before you went to the Pentagon?
No, I was a communications computer officer at the Pentagon, and that's where the Air Force sent me. And so spent my 4 years there.
Excuse me, between Duke and law school, you worked at the Pentagon for the Air Force.
I did.
Okay, for 4 years in the Pentagon. Did you know you were going to go to law school eventually?
I had a pretty good idea that that's where I wanted to serve, and I felt like the law is something that, frankly, Steve, I'm a nerd. And if you ask anybody, they will tell you.
You're a friendly nerd, though.
Boring and predictable. And this is a really good thing for judges, is to be.
You got a quick mind too. I tell you what, you remind me of somebody. I ask a question and they answer as soon as you already ascertain. One of the best lawyers in the state, old Joe Espy. Espy does that. I love Espy. You can see a smart lawyer. As soon as you say something, they just grasp it and ascertain. But I interrupt you. But so you were 4 years, went to Duke, and then you were 4 years at the Pentagon. That's where you met your wife.
It is in church there in
and Jay Wolf, the pastor.
Jay Wolf was our pastor in the First Baptist of Alexandria. They had a singles program, and I'm very proud of meeting my wife there. She's a wonderful woman, and she was willing to come home to Alabama with me after law school. So
I love it. Now, did she she's not a lawyer.
No, she's not a lawyer. She's a software engineer, so she spent about 7 or 8 years working in the software field, and then when our children were born, I had our second child, we realized that it was just too much time, and so she spent time at home for about 20 years helping raise our family. And so I have 3 children, and we're a great team, I think, and did a great job raising our children, very happy and proud of our children, and so she has now decided to run for the city council in Vestavia, which is where
I
we
thought
live.
she was already on it.
She is.
Okay.
Yeah, she's in her second term. And decided to run for the city council because she decided that she wanted to make sure our school board was conservative.
I remember you
Republican.
telling me about that. Yeah.
That's right. She had tried to be appointed to the school board, and they did not pick her, and so she told them that if they were not going to pick her, that she was going to run for their job. And when they didn't pick her, she ran for the city council. She knocked on 3,000 doors in Vestavia and won election, and now we have 5 conservative city council, school board members in Vestavia, and my wife has been reelected a second time. So
you know, Jebba is my best friend, Jebba Wagner.
Yep.
You know, my daughter lives in Vestavia, and Ann Holman, who's with me, her son Russ lives in Vestavia. But what about Jenny, my daughter's a lawyer with Carl Allison.
Yes.
Yeah, you knew that, I think, didn't you? I told you that.
I did know that.
She lives in Vestavia and has law office in Vestavia. But what I was going to ask you is, so where did she go to undergraduate school? Your wife go to undergraduate school?
She went to William and Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, y'all got mighty good undergraduate degrees, William and Mary and Duke, and then so y'all met there, and she went to Harvard to Boston with you to law school.
She did. I remember asking her father for her hand, and his question was, well, what's your plans for the future? And my answer was, well, I'm going to quit my job at the Air Force, and I'm going to go to law school and let your daughter pay my way for 4 years.
What did he say?
He said yes. I hope it's been a good deal for her. We've been married for 33 years and have very
well,
happy.
tell us about your
marriage.
three children now. You got 3 children.
So I have 2 boys. Both of them are Eagle Scouts.
Now tell me the ages they are.
So my oldest is 29. He's a software engineer and works for a Department of Defense contractor in Northern Virginia. My youngest is he went to Alabama. My youngest is also at Alabama. He's a junior there and enjoying
What's he
it.
majoring in?
Business. And then my daughter in the middle is went to Vanderbilt and then spent 3 years working in D.C. on the Hill. She worked for Senator Sessions, Senator Shelby, and Senator Lamar Alexander.
Okay. You have been involved in Republican politics a long time.
I have.
In Jefferson County. Matter of fact, David Wheeler told me the other day you were the secretary, or he thinks a lot of you. David, who's a representative there in Vestavia. Yep. He was talking so highly of you about how you've done a lot of work for the Republican Party in Jefferson County that's obviously not paid, but they need lawyers to have to do the legal work. And you've been like the secretary and lawyer for the whole party for some time?
Right. David was our party chair probably a decade ago, and so I'd been the lawyer for the Jefferson County Republican Party, obviously a volunteer position, for close to 20 years, and so did that for David.
20 years.
I also did it for Justice Boland when he was the chair of the Jefferson County Party.
Now do you live in Liberty Park?
We do.
That's what I thought. Yeah. You know that school system there is so good.
It is.
And your wife's a good part of that. My little granddaughter goes to Vestavia East. She's in the 5th grade.
It's a great school system.
Yeah, that's a good school system. Let me ask you this question though. When did you decide to run for the Supreme Court?
So that's a good question. I'm 59 years old.
Well, you sure don't look like it.
Well, thank you. As you mentioned, there's an age cap. You can't start a new term once you turn 70. And so you start looking at your career and you say, what have I done for public service? And I've spent 4 years in the Air Force. I have been a volunteer with the Scouts since 1987. I'm a deacon at my church.
You are a deacon at Dawson.
I am a deacon at Dawson. Taught youth Sunday school since 1994. We're actually taking this year off since the campaign is kind of hectic. But so I've been very involved in my community, but those were side jobs. Those were volunteer positions. They weren't full-time positions. And you look at your career and you say, what do I want to be remembered for? What can I contribute? And at this point, I have another 12, 15 years left of my practice, and this is a way I think I can really help the state and give back. I have spent 30 years getting ready for this job. I have handled almost 1,000 cases. I've handled cases in over 40 of our counties.
Have you?
I have, in over 15 different states. I have written a 2,000-page book on Alabama court rules. It's a really boring book, Steve.
Well, let me ask you this. What firm have you been with in all these 30 years?
I am with Balch and Bingham.
Oh, you're Balch Bingham then?
I am.
Oh, good. Okay. Good business group.
And as you say, I've been with the same firm for 30 years. I've been with the same church for 30 years. I've been with the same wife for 33 years. I am a boring, predictable guy.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. You've got one beautiful resume. Duke undergraduate, Air Force veteran, Harvard Law School, 30 years with Balch Bingham, 33 years with your wife, and 30 years in the Dawson Baptist Church. You're the perfect candidate for the Supreme Court. I mean, you really are.
Well, I hope so.
And written a book on the rules.
Yeah, I hope so.
What did you specialize in at Balch? Did you have specialized in anything?
So when I was young, when you're young at a law firm, we were a little smaller back in 1991. I got to do a little bit of everything. Smaller cases, small claims stuff, workers' compensation things, insurance cases, car crashes. I got to do everything.
Everything.
Nowadays, I handle commercial litigation. So I handle cases that are typically millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars sometimes. I handle them in class actions. I was co-chair of the American Bar Association's Class Action Committee. I've written a couple of books, edited a couple of books on class actions. So I've handled cases in multi-district litigation across the country. So I've handled very large cases these days.
So you decided about a year ago, you said, I'm going to just give back to the state.
Well, I started thinking before that. I mean, I'm a planner, Steve. I think long into the future because I'm boring and predictable. And so I've been thinking about this for about 5 years. And so I've started talking to folks 2 or 3 years ago. And I started taking active steps back in November. So when the last election was over with, I started calling people. I mean, I'm the legal counsel for the state Republican Party. So I started calling everybody on the state Republican Party. I started calling everybody on the county Republican parties across the state. And then I started going out and seeing people in January.
Are you raising money already too, aren't you?
I am.
Is it difficult this early out? Are you able to do pretty good with your fundraising?
It's gone very well. As you know, there's a blackout period that says you can't raise money until a year before the election.
Right. And
so that would have been May 24th of this year. So I've been raising money since May 24th. I've raised a little over $300,000 and have about $250,000 in the bank. So I'm very enthusiastic about that. And of course, these races can be expensive. 15, 20 years ago, these races could cost $2 or $3 million. I hope it's not going to cost that much, but I'm planning for it to cost at least $1 million.
It will.
I intend to work hard to raise money, and even today I've been making calls to raise money. So
that's the most difficult thing about running for office, and it's you got to do it. Unless you're just immensely wealthy and just self-finance, and there are very few people who can do that. But the one person who's been successful at that over the years, it's because he loved it, was old Shelby.
Senator Shelby is fantastic at raising money.
He actually likes to do it. He is chomping at the bit when he was first elected to the Senate to go back to his office, start calling people asking for money. He would ask every lobbyist he saw in the hall before he said, how much money can you give me today?
Yep.
I mean, I need $5,000 before the end of the day. Can y'all bring it by, or I'll come by and get it from y'all?
Well, judges can't do something like that. When I call people, I can't ask for money.
You can't ask them.
The canons of judicial ethics.
Y'all cannot ask for
strongly discourage.
What do you do? Just say, I want to
call them up and you say, hey, I'm running for Supreme Court. I'd love for you support me, and then you hang the phone up, and that's as far as you can go.
I did not know that. I didn't know that. Well, it wouldn't do for Shelby run for the Supreme Court.
No.
We're gonna miss him. You know it.
He has done a fantastic job for the state of Alabama.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's just, it's just, people don't know how much, that, especially that Huntsville area. I mean, if you think, that growth hadn't been, if we hadn't had Shelby, that wouldn't have been there.
You walk across the University of Alabama, half the buildings have his name on them.
And do you know something? And it was there because they should be. I mean, they're there because he got the money for them.
Because he got the building.
I mean, it's not like, you know, somebody gets a building name because they got a, you know, political. But he actually got the money for the whole building. That whole area of the university, and he's always science oriented too. He realizes that's the future. If you look at all the buildings he gets, is science related. Do you know that people don't realize this, in that quadrant of buildings he brought to the University of Alabama, there are 2 or 3 science buildings, but in the middle of it, this is a very unknown fact, you may know this, is a building, this state of the art, that is the national water level headquarters for the United States government, is right in the middle of the University of Alabama campus.
I did not know
Do you
that.
know how many federal employees are hired there? They come in every day. Close to 1,000 federal employees.
Wow.
The national water level for the whole country is in the University of Alabama because of Shelby.
Yep.
He's never broadcast that, but it was going to California, but he was in a certain position. He says, I think I want that to go to Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
And so it's so sophisticated. You remember when they had the bad flood there in Tuscaloosa?
I do.
Oh no, I'm sorry, the last bad tornado that
In 2011?
that damaged New Orleans so badly, not this last one, but the real major one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dr. Witt, who's president of the University of Alabama, came from LSU, from Baton Rouge. We had a lot of friends down there, and they said, we're captured in our houses. The water is 10 feet. You know, we can't get out to get any water, get any food. You know, I don't know what we're going to do. Dr. Witt picked up the phone and called over to the center that Shelby brought, the National Water System, and they know exactly the water level of every place in the country every second.
Wow.
They told the man, said, Dr. Witt, you tell your friends in Louisiana that the water is going to subside 1 inch an hour, and within 10 hours is when it's going to subside. They knew exactly, you know, the water level.
Wow.
But that people don't realize that. The 2,000 employee FBI facility coming to Huntsville.
Yes.
I didn't mean to get off on that,
No,
Michelle,
yeah.
but I apologize for taking your time. But people don't realize how much he's done. But I learned something about the fundraising. So y'all can't do the Shelby thing on people.
Nope.
Y'all just call it, how you doing? You know, I'm running for the Supreme Court. That's how you say.
Just about all you can say.
I
Yes.
didn't know that. I learned something. But old Tom Parker was so shy he wouldn't ask me anyway. A lot of those guys don't want to. I mean, they don't want to.
It's an awkward situation.
It is.
You don't ever want anyone to say there's some quid pro quo.
I
You
know.
ruled a particular way because someone donated money to your campaign. So I understand why the rule is there, and it's a good rule to have.
Do you know Senator Howell Heffin? It has a lot to do with our judicial system
Oh, yeah.
being as good as it is. You remember Judge Heffin, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He passed that judicial oracle in the 70s.
Yep.
And it's done a lot for our judicial system. That building's over named for him for a reason.
Yep.
I mean, now let me tell our viewers, I'm right about 9 members.
That's
Do you
right.
know the 9 members on the Supreme Court right now? Let's talk about all of them if you don't mind. Since we talked about that, who you going to join over there?
Yes.
Brad Mendham, who Ann Holman's friend from Dothan,
Yes.
who grew up and pillar of the First Baptist Church in Dothan. I've watched him get on the court. And then Will Sellers, who is here in Montgomery, tax lawyer,
Right.
married to Lee Sellers. Tom Parker, married to Dottie, who's Chief Justice. And Kelly Wise from Geneva.
She is.
She's running with. She's
running at the same time. She's an incumbent.
She's
and
been on
she's
the
running
show.
for
She
re-election.
was on the show about a month ago.
Good.
Kelly was on here. I've known her since she was a little girl.
Yeah.
Her uncle was a good friend of mine from Geneva. He was the probate judge down there in Geneva County. Harold Wise just died about a month ago.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I was in Geneva last night talking to the Farmers Federation.
You're doing your homework. That Farmers Federation is an important endorsement, and you got to work for it.
You got to work hard. I've been to 52 counties to campaign with the Farmers Federation. So.
Well, it gets you a view of the state too.
Right.
I mean, you get to see what. I mean, you know, if you weren't doing that, you wouldn't necessarily go to Cherokee County or.
Right.
You know what you find out. And you were talking about this when you came in, and how many miles you putting on your truck. Unless someone runs for statewide office, they don't realize how big a state this is.
Right.
It's a long way from Dothan to Florence.
Well, you stop and see, you say, is this the best way to pick your judges? And I think it is. I mean, I think it's important that if I'm going to be a justice for the entire state, that I have been to those counties and talked to those people and looked at them in the face and understand the problems that they're facing and what, I think that's important to understand. I think people need to understand that you understand them and get them to be able to be their justice.
Well, the thing too is you realize what a beautiful state we have.
We do.
And what a diverse state. You think about the difference from that Tennessee Valley to the ports of Mobile.
Yep.
I mean, you think about if you travel this state, but I'll tell you one thing, I've traveled the state of my newspaper column and visiting different places with commentary and stuff, but I used to visit all my papers around the state every year, but anyway, I used to always schedule my time to be in the fall up in that northeastern part of the state.
It's very pretty.
Greg, have you that Mentone area?
It's very pretty.
I've never seen anything pretty. Asheville, North Carolina, hasn't got a thing on that area.
They don't.
I think that's going to
Boy
be.
Scouts have a camp up there.
Do they? And
Yep.
you said were you an Eagle Scout? Your son
I was not. I'm a vice president of the Greater Alabama Council. So
Okay.
I have
That's
spent,
when I saw you that luncheon that day. Yeah.
that I was co-chair of the fundraising campaign this year.
Okay.
So I have been a volunteer with the Scouts since 1987 and hiked hundreds of miles with the Boy Scouts and really believe in the Boy Scout law and oath. So I believe it changes lives of young people, and I am a true believer. I've drunk all the Kool-Aid for the Boy Scouts. So
I'll tell you one thing, but in that pretty area, where's
It's
the
very
Boy
pretty.
Scout thing about been?
it's named Comer. Comer is the name of the camp, and if you get off of Fort Payne there and go over the mountain, you'll come to it pretty
Your
quickly.
sons have been both of your sons.
Oh
have been
yeah,
there, huh?
absolutely. Yeah. And
You-
they've both had their Eagle Scout projects. One of them built a pavilion for one of the local parks in Vestavia, and one of them built a bridge near Homewood High School and over one of the creeks. And I went to Philmont, which is the big Boy Scout camp in New Mexico, to hike through the mountains for 2 weeks with my youngest son. We did that in 2016, and I just think that I've gotten to do so many wonderful things with the Boy Scouts.
Your oldest son was an Eagle Scout. He's 29 now. Where is he now?
He's in Reston, Virginia.
Does he have a wife yet?
He does. He got married last year during COVID. It was supposed to be in April, and they called it off because of COVID. And they said, "Well, we'll schedule it for August," thinking that by August COVID would be over with. And it was still crazy, but they said we're just going to go ahead and go.
Now
through
your
it.
other children are not married yet, are
No,
they?
neither of them are married.
Now you still got one at the university.
Right. He's a junior at Alabama.
Well, I tell you one thing. He's down there at the era when he'll be able to tell his grandchildren nobody ever match what Saban's doing at Alabama.
It's phenomenal. And what's happened to the university, even just looking
I
at
know it.
My youngest brother went to Alabama and graduated in '95. So I spent a fair amount of time over there with him in the early '90s, and seeing the difference between the early '90s and what it's like today is like night and day. You don't even almost recognize the campus. I mean, they've blown up half the dorms and rebuilt them, and they've got Shelby's new buildings for the science and engineering all across the campus. And part of that's because of wise planning by the administration, and part of it's because of Nick Saban.
It is. If you ask all those out-of-state students who are coming there, they say they've watched. I'm on television, beat everybody every year.
Yep.
And the country's 10 times, so it's.
And more than half of the incoming freshmen now are from out of state.
Yeah, I knew that, and it's been that way for a couple of years now.
It has.
I'll tell you another interesting thing. I know you have 2 sons and 1 daughter.
Yes.
The middle daughter, where is she?
She is a first-year law student at Harvard this year.
Is that right? Where did she go to undergraduate?
She went to Vanderbilt.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. So you have one to come back to Alabama, but she may not come back going to Vanderbilt.
We hope she's going to come back. She spent the last 6 months in Birmingham and had a great opportunity to spend some time with some of the judges in Birmingham and a couple of law firms in Birmingham, and really, I think, understood what a sophisticated legal market we have and why living in Birmingham would be a fantastic place for her. So we're lobbying her, hopefully, to come home.
Let me say this: do y'all have an anti-nepotism rule at Balch?
We do.
She can't clerk at Balch.
She can't clerk at Balch.
Well, that's a mighty good firm. I didn't even know. I talked to you with Balch. I didn't realize that. Greg, one other thing about the Supreme Court, we didn't name all of them. We named Parker, Kelly Wise, who else?
We named Tommy Bryan.
Tommy Bryan, yeah.
We named Brad Mendham.
Brad Mendham.
We named Will Sellers. We haven't. I don't think we named
Sarah Stewart.
Sarah Stewart from Mobile.
There's another female in there.
Kelly Wise is the
Kelly
other
Wise,
female.
that's right. Yeah.
Justice Boland.
That's
Greg
one,
Shaw.
Greg Shaw is who I was forgetting.
And I'm not sure if we've reached 8 or 9, to be honest.
Do you know I had Chad Hansen on the show a
Yes.
couple weeks ago? He's a nice guy.
He's a great guy. He works really hard, and he won an unexpected race when he ran last time.
He told me I'd forgotten about who was in that race.
He won because he worked his tail off.
That's what he did.
And that's what I'm doing. I mean, I believe that you win by hard work, and so I put almost 30,000 miles on my truck since January, and I continue. So I am about halfway through this race. You know, January to now is about 8.5 months, and the primary is next May 24th, so that's another 8.5 months. So today is just about exactly in the middle. So I need to put another 30,000 miles on my truck, and I guarantee you I will put at least that many on it.
Well, you'll do it, but go in the fall. Go up by that northeast part of the state. I'd schedule to be in Scottsboro and Fort Payne during the fall if you can.
Absolutely, it's beautiful up there.
Our time's gone by, Greg. I hate it goes by so fast. I've enjoyed visiting with you, but our time's about gone.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, folks, our guest tonight has been Greg Cook, who is a Republican candidate for the state Supreme Court in Alabama, next May 24th election, which will be here before you know it. But he is a very, very distinguished, well-qualified candidate for the Republican nomination for the Supreme Court. And by the way, all of our judges on the state Supreme Court are Republicans. But remember his name, Greg Cook. He's from Jefferson County, but he's got roots in Florence and Atmore, and he's an Air Force veteran, well-qualified guy for the Supreme Court. And we want to thank him for taking time to be with us, and we thank you viewers for watching. Hope you tune again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.